organization. We advocate on behalf of young people who are at risk of or with legal system involvement. Our organization is a policy organization. We focus on the advocating on behalf of kids at risk of involvement involved with the juvenile justice system, but we also look into other systems that are feeders into our legal system, so specifically schools and the child welfare system. And then we also look at what happens to young people once they transition past 18, where they're still adolescents but involved in the criminal legal system. So really excited to have to be here and to be asked by the commission to present a training on how to meet with legislators in preparation for the Advocacy Day, which is in the previous slide, which I know I jumped over. So it's going to be on Monday, 11:30 at the State House. So you will have, I know the commission staff are going to be talking to you about the bills and at the run of the day at the end of today's training. So anything related to that event, please ask the commission staff. Anything related about how to meet with legislators and what to say, that's what I'm here for. So if you can move on a couple of slides. One thing I'm also grateful for the commission is the commission, you all have endorsed and advocating on lots of bills. One of them is a bill that CFJJ has is a priority piece of legislation, which is raising the age so that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are in the juvenile system, not the adult system. So grateful to have the commission have this on your in your packet of and priority bills. So I'm going to start with a quick just overview. If you can, so this is just a because I know from all of this, everybody here, not sure how many have actually met with legislators, how many this is the first time, but I wanted to start with very few basics, just so that we're all on the same page. Because I know sometimes I say, hey, let's talk to your legislators, and then we say, yeah, I've talked to Senator Warren, or I did something, and like, let's make sure like we all know what the terms are. So for those of you involved, this is probably 9th or 10th grade civics, or maybe 8th grade here. So we talked about the levels of government and the branches of government. So we have 3 levels. So if you think about it hierarchically, we have the federal government, which anything that comes federally applies to everything in the entire country. We have our state, which applies to everything in Massachusetts. And then we have local. Massachusetts has 351 towns and cities. I know the commission is organized by county or region. We no longer have, we have a few things that are still in a county level of government, but the vast majority is cities and towns. And then the next slide, we talk about the branches of government. So each of these levels, we have 3 branches. There's the executive branch, was in charge of implementing the law. And then there's the legislative, which is responsible for making the laws, and then the judicial, which is responsible for interpreting the law. So this slide just gives you examples of what each of these, what the terms are. So when you hear a congressman, or you hear a president, or a city councilor, where does they all fit in here? So next, I'm going to run through this. So when we talk about executive, these are examples. Like we have the president, we have the governor, and every town or city has their own level of who the executive is. For this training, we're going to be mostly only, so if you can hit one more down, we're going to focus on state government. So in this case, eventually everything we are advocating for, starting on Monday, eventually again has to go to Governor Healy's desk. So we're working towards that. The second, so next slide, we're talking about the legislative. Again, we have 3 different branches. The focus of our advocacy is again in the state. So the legislative, so one more click. At the state level, our legislative branch is called the General Court, and the General Court is split into two chambers. So next slide. So we have 2. One is what's called the upper and lower. So one is the state Senate. There are 40 state senators, which means Massachusetts is broken up into 40 regions. They're not they're not by county or city boundaries or zip codes even. It's by census. And they try to make it that each Senate district has 175,000 constituents in the population. This is not necessarily voters. This is the census population. So that's how many people they represent. And then we have 160 state representatives. So they represent about 44,000 residents of that geographic region. Again, by census, not by city, zip code, or county. So this is where we're going to focus our conversation today. These are people we're going to be meeting with. So I'm going to go next slide. I think this is. So as you're thinking about this, like, whoa, how do they all fit together? This is how they fit together. You are what holds all of these elected officials together. So imagine yourself, who is accountable to someone? Who is accountable to me? I'm trying to figure out the direct object in that sentence. So as the center, the folks, the decision makers closest to you are in your local level, right? So they'd be a city councilor, the town meeting members. Next to that are those who represent you in the state, and that's where you have the state senate, rep, governor, and then you're also a U.S. resident. So everybody, the federal government, from the president to Congress, all are accountable to you. So next slide. I think this is, I do have a poll. Yes, this is the poll. So first question, if you can just do a quick, if you do the virtual hands, how many of you actually know your own state representative and state senator's name, just who they are? I'm just trying to do a poll, an informal poll. So I don't know if all right, so a handful. So second question is, if you do one more click, have you ever called or, oh, sorry, one more before that, sorry. Have you ever called, emailed, or met with your own state legislator? And same thing with the virtual hands. Awesome. So quite a bit of you, which is great. So what I'm gonna, so the next slide is, we're gonna be focusing on the bulk of today's training. So just so that you know how it's gonna be organized from here, the first part is going to say like how to actually meet with your legislators, what are the tips, what are things to do, how to ask for a meeting. The second part of this meeting is actually doing a trial run. What we're just, so that you know, we have we have 7 volunteers who are going to be today's volunteer legislators, and you will be broken up into 7 breakout rooms, and you will actually do lobbying on a bill that we will choose for you and show you how to do it and practice it. Because I'll tell you one funny story, I think. Back in my 20s, it's been a while, I went to a training just like this, and the trainer was amazing. The trainer walked us through, this is who they are, these are the talking points, this is how to do it. And at the end of the training, I left and I said, I know how to do this. I know how to do a legislative meeting. I'm too terrified. I can't do it. And I froze and actually didn't do it. So my goal is that you don't have and the funny thing is, I said, I can never do it. Now it's my job. So what I want to do is, I want you to find the joy in this and how easy it is, because it's one thing to watch it and one thing to do it. Watching gymnastics on the Olympics, they make it look so easy, but it's really hard. This, I'm going to break it down into minutia, but when you do it, it's the exact opposite. It's really easy, because you're having you're having a conversation with someone, and it's going to be a natural flow of conversation. You just have a goal of that conversation. So just want to give you a preview. So next slide, there is So one thing I want to make sure you know, like when you reach out to your legislator, there's two ways there's two reasons you would reach out to them. One is the one a lot of folks do is I am dealing with a government service. I'm trying to navigate it. I have a case in front of a government agency and I need help. And then you would say, can you help me? So, for example, I'm having an issue with my immigration papers or my housing application. Can you help me? The other, which is relevant for today, is called advocacy. So this is not about help me, but it's like you are representing me in making decisions for our community, and you're also making decisions of how you are going to spend the tax money that I'm paying taxes, and you're deciding how my taxes are going to be spent. I want you to know you can't represent me if you don't know what I want. Like, it's in my head. It's not going to help you to make decisions if you don't know it. So I want to talk to you so that you can make decisions based on my own values, what my opinions are. But here's a tip, one more click. This is where the level of government works. So I gave an example of immigration. You'd want to do like your congressperson. If it's a housing authority, it's probably your state rep. So that's how you still want to know level of government, even if it's a constituent service. So next, as advocates, there are 3 rules that so I'm a registered lobbyist in the state of Massachusetts. So these rules I live by, and these rules you will all live by. The first rule is that you have elected officials, like the people you vote for, and appointed officials. Those are people who are like the commissioner of an agency, or the police chief in your town, or the superintendent of your school. Those are all, you don't vote for them, they're appointed by another body. They make decisions based on who's watching them. So if they think this is something that can be behind the scenes, they will make a decision that really, like, I can live with this. If they see there's a lot of constituency, especially if it's controversial, the way they make decisions will vary, because they're going to be responsive to who knocks at their doors and say, this matters to me. The second rule, which is the one we're going to focus on today, is getting the right information to the right person to the right time. So anytime there is a decision or a debate, you want to ask, what information do I want to give? Who do I talk to? So if it's something like I talked about the governor, if we talk to the governor right now, it's a little early, but we talk about someone. But if we talk to the governor in a few months, maybe it's correct. For one of your bills, actually, the governor has a bill in front of her right now, and like maybe this is the time to talk to her and not legislators. So that's why the timing and the person matters. The information is typically going to be what your values. Then third, when you meet with legislators, one of the things that I feel a lot of people get tripped up on is, I don't have the stats. It's okay. You have 2 things that policymakers need. They need your opinion and you need facts. If you have stats, that's why fact sheets are there. I'll show you the fact sheets that the commission has prepared for you later today. That you can give them that information. They can read it just like you can read it. They can get that information. But also our facts are your own experiences. Like, this is what's happening in my community. In my school, this is what I'm seeing. Where my classmates or my children, this is what's happening. Those are all facts. They're not going to come in a fact sheet, because this is what's happening in their community that this legislator represents. Opinion also matters, because opinion talks to you about your values. And this, what legislators listen for are not, well, I like this bill, but I don't like this bill, or I like this. What they want to hear is why you like this or that. Why is your opinion that way? And this is where your values come through. And what you try to do is you're trying to find, do your legislators meet your values? And if they meet your values, then it's easier to, like, okay, so now we see this, and now you see where I'm coming from. If they don't have the same values, you're going to change what you talk about to try to address where there's lack of meeting, and say, okay, where can we find common ground? So next. So we're going to focus on the time frame. This is going to be a really quick, slow succession. So the first thing where we're at right now is the bills are filed and they have been given to an issue-based committee. Your bills are in healthcare finance, education, state administration and regulatory oversight. There's a bunch of those. So each bill, there's like about 8,000 bills. They go separate into these committees. So the committees can say, okay, we're going to be experts for these next 2 years on this issues, and we're going to make decisions. The committee then, and then after they do a public hearing, they will make a decision on this bill. So one more click. This is going to be, so they will make 1 or 2 decisions. They will either send it to study or say done for the year, for the session, or they say, yep, so we're good with it. It's going to go move on. So the next stage is going to go to Ways and Means. Ways and Means will be the same thing. They will either say, no, we're not going to do any action on this bill, or no, we're going to let it go for a vote. Then it goes for a vote. And then the next stage, it says, yay, it passed the House or Senate. If it dies, then it's dead. If it passes, then it goes to this other chamber. If it goes to House, then Senate, or Senate to House. Same exact thing. They will go through it. They will do their own analysis, and then they will pass a bill. Typically, the House and Senate will pass bills that are not really the same. So they get assigned to what's called the conference committee. That they say, okay, these bills are the same. How can we make them the same? So you come up with one bill, and that one bill goes to the governor. And the governor at that point says, yes, it becomes into law, or no, in which case the bill dies, or they would go for a veto override. So I mention all this is because this is why our legislature takes about 19 months to go through all of this. So on Monday, you'll be at the State House, you'll be talking about it. But I just want to make sure you know, like, this is the first step. As each time, as a bill moves forward, some will be filtered out if they don't move forward, but some will continue. So when the commission says, we have more actions, call your legislators. You say, but we met them in March. Why are we doing it again? This is why you do it again. Because at every stage, the right time is you need to, so what are you doing at this time? And this is what, so the ask will be based on each of these steps. So I'm going to focus right now on the bill sponsorship. Where are we right now? The bills just got filed. They just got committees. They just got bill numbers. On Monday, you will be meeting with your legislators, your state rep and your state senator. And what you want to know is, well, what can I do as a constituent? So when you meet with them on Monday, you're asking them to do a co-sponsorship. That's going to be the primary, unless the commission has any other ask, but the primary ask is sign on. What is a co-sponsorship? So you have a bill, let's say, if you don't mind, I'm going to plug my bill, the Raise the Age bill. We have 3 legislators, right? So we have Rep. O'Day, Rep. Cruz, and Senator Creighton said, we filed this bill. Great, so what's the role of someone else? I like this bill, how can I support it? So then that's where co-sponsorship comes in. You come in, I meet with my own legislator and say, hey, this bill, I love it, it's great. Can you co-sponsor? So under the name of these 3 legislators, you'll start seeing over time more and more legislators signing on. When they sign on, they are publicly committing that if this comes to a vote, I'm going to vote yes. As the bill is drafted. Sometimes it will change, but you have my support and you have my commitment. One of the issues in the legislature is not all bills go to a vote. So co-sponsorship is really important because what you can say is, this session is new, but last session, some of these bills were filed. You can say, hey, Rep. Smith or Rep. I'm making up names. You co-sponsored it last session. Can we keep your support on it this year? Or you can say, you didn't sign on to it last session. What information do you need? Because we would legally like to have you. And the goal is the more co-sponsors you have, the better chance this bill come out of committee. So it's not just the final vote, but also helps it at the next stage. They will also have committee. The other decision is actually the committee chairs themselves. So they typically are not your legislators, but they're the ones you want to influence. So when you meet with your legislators, you also want to tell them to influence the committee itself. So you're asking the committee to do two sets of asks. So the next slide talks about. So these are the asks. So when you meet with them, because there's two actions happening simultaneously, I should have changed this. So I co-sponsor these bills, which are either before, and then choose wherever so you want to know where the bill is. in the education committee, healthcare finance. And then you tell them, this is what we want you to do. We want them to have to pass. We don't want the other two, which is the bill is dead for the session. Next slide. So this is where I'm going to go into, and if anybody has any questions, sorry, I'm going really fast because I think the funnest part is the legislative meetings. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll try to get to them. If it's not in the presentation, I'll try to get them as well. So post-COVID, we have more opportunities to engage with our legislators. We can meet with them on Zoom. We can meet with them in real life, IRL. So I'm going to talk to you about like how to meet with them and when it's different if it's virtual or in person. And in person can be in the State House in Boston, or it can actually be more convenient in their district. So you can ask them like, hey, I want to meet in the district. They typically have office hours in the public library or a coffee shop. So if you can start the next slide. So I'm a baker. So when you bake, you may have 3 or 4 ingredients. You have flour, you have butter, you have sugar, other stuff. But any good bakery, those are the 3 main things. But with just few ingredients, you can do a lot of foods. The difference is the quantity. Like you need all of those. How much of each of them? What's the right sequence? So if you can do just one click, the first thing you need is education. So legislators, 8,000 bills, they're not going to know everything. You want them to know this is what this bill does. This is what the problem, this is what it's solving, this is why I think it matters. So a lot of folks focus on the education piece and your talking points. You'll see even in this training, we will focus on between the fact sheets and what to talk about. A lot of it focuses on the education. That is really, really important. But if you only have education, you don't have a cookie. The next thing you need is passion. Not just your own passion, you want to translate that to your legislator. So how can they care about it? Again, you have to think of that. I have 8,000 bills. Why is this going to raise to me? Why does it matter to me? How are you going to make it connect to me that I can? It's like, oh yeah, I can see you. We share our values, or I can see this. This is important. So because cerebrally, like I'm going to use the example of climate change. A lot of folks were like, oh, climate change is important, but how many are actually passionate about it? That no, this really, really matters. I'm going to take it. And then the third ingredient is action. You can have a legislator who knows what it's about. They can like really care, but then you have to hold them accountable and by that action. Like what are they going to do? And this is whether it's a legislator or whether it's your school committee or whether it's like your own membership that you're trying to organize. You need those 3 together. Without one, if you have 2 of those but not all 3, it's hard to get things moved, get the person that you want to influence to actually take action and do what you asked. So next slide, please. So this is where I want all of you to actually start typing in your own laptop, on your computers. So if you would please type this in, if I can, I'll put it in the chat. You want to type in, not sure I can, right here, MA legislature, I can't type and talk. MAlegislature.gov search/find my. Oh, great. Thank you so much. It's in the chat. You can click on it in the chat. I'm going to give you like 2 seconds. You're going to get a screen. The first screen is going to have a map. The bottom of the screen is going to have an input. The nice thing about the map is it's also visual. You can either type in a city, you can type in your street address, you can actually use the map and move your cursor and click on a location. Like, I don't know, I'm gonna just click on this and it will tell me the legislator. The only trick, I would not use just the city on this one, because if you say Boston, for example, there are 19 legislators in representing Boston. If you just type in Boston, you're only going to get one rep and one senator, because it's going to come to like the center of the town. So that's going to be the least accurate. But if you put in but this is an example. When I clicked on it, okay, thank you. If I clicked on the map, it showed me on this location. The next page, next slide, if you scroll down on the same page, you can actually just type in your name and address. And when you hit search, it will give you your actual. So this is the one I prefer. So again, file type, visual, both options are there. Then you get a page and it shows you your two legislators. It will give you their picture and their name, and their names are hyperlinked. So you're going to if you click on their name, you're going to get to a result page for each one of them separately. It's really fancy right now, but the main things you want are their email address and their phone number. And you get that for both your House and Senate rep. So what I want right now is for those of you do this, before we go on to anything else, type in the chat who are your state rep and say senator with this search. And just last names are fine. Wonderful. Great. So as you're doing this, I'm going to keep going so the rest of us, so we can follow along. So that first step is find out who they are. So this is great. Now you know them and you have their contact information. Remember, get their email and their phone number. I'm going to explain to you why. The first way to do it is you schedule a meeting. What is the email you send in? And I'm not going to be mean. I was going to say, maybe we should have you schedule your meetings today, but I'm not going to be that mean. But you can practice. So first thing, the way I like it is I like to start the request with an email, because the email I can put more information in it. So you want to send an email to your rep and your senator separately. They don't really typically work with each other, or they don't schedule together. So let's say I'm going to come in on Monday. I'm going to be here at, sorry, I don't know the timings. Like, I'll be here at 1 o'clock. Can I have a meeting with you at 1 o'clock? And then with the rep, can I meet you at 1? And senator, can I meet you at 1:30? One thing that if you all come into the State House, one good thing to do right now is actually email your rep and senator, say, hey, I'm coming to the State House on Monday with the Mass Commission on the Status of Women, and I look forward to, I will not, and if you haven't scheduled meetings, I'm going to be there. The reason that is helpful, even if you don't put anything else in the email, just to let them know I'm going to knock at your door and come, is that a lot of times some legislators work, we're still in a hybrid mode, and they don't always have staff in the office. If you email them, say, I'm going to come by, they will typically make sure someone is in the office to expect you to be there. So that it's typically a courtesy that the staff appreciate, so that they know if they're going to work remote or at the State House one day. But for a scheduled meeting, you can reach out to them. What's good to include the bill numbers and a link to a fact sheet. So say, hey, I'm meeting, these are the bills I'm coming, this is the name, this is the bill number, and either attach the fact sheet, or you can say it's on a website and here's a hyperlink to the fact sheet. They like to do this, so before you come in, they will actually print out the fact sheet. But it's good for you to have a copy, but you will print it, and then they will read it ahead of time so that they're prepared. If you're okay with it, should be okay. Sorry, if you can go back a little. You would want to meet with, you can say I want to meet with a rep and senator, but you can also say I'm okay meeting with an aide. If you're okay with meeting an aide, you can say that. You typically will get us an earlier meeting. If you don't hear back, I would say give them a day or two. If you don't hear back, it's always good to call them. That's why you want the phone number. They don't get a lot of phone, you don't get a lot of phone calls. Everybody's drowning in email. So say, hey, I called, and then say, oh, you know what? Thank you for calling. We missed your email. When did you send it? They'll actually go through their email and say, oh, I found it. And then they'll follow up with that. And also in your email, you can say, like, I prefer to meet on Zoom. I want to meet at the State House. I want to meet on district. So if telling them ahead of time would make it easier for scheduling. Carlene?
Yes.
You have your
I'm
hand.
sorry. Oh, I
Oh,
apologize. I made a mistake.
that's from,
Please
okay.
disregard it.
It's okay.
Thanks.
Anna, we do have some questions, so just let me know if you would like to take a pause at any moment.
Okay. So are they related to how to meet with, like, the how to get the how to for, is it?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through. I think we had, let me see, there was one. I think I've lost it now. Go ahead. I apologize. I had it queued up. The chat is jumping. So
Okay. So here's if it's related to something I covered,
Is it
please.
too late to ask my question? I'm sorry. This is just a second. I don't know who that is.
Go ahead, Carlene. Sure.
I just had a question. So when we go down there to the State House, are we going under one regime? Like, are you guys trying to fight a particular bill, or are you teaching us so that we can fight individually?
This training is designed to give folks the tools to be able to advocate on any one of the bills that the Mass Commission on the Status of Women has endorsed. You will receive a link to those resources as a part of this training and a follow-up, and we'll also have prepared materials when you arrive at the State House on Monday. But there is a list that you can choose from, and we have topics that cover things from healthcare to government access to safety, to other regional issue areas. But definitely happy to answer anything else in the chat if it's easier.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Sana, just real quickly, I did find that question. So Lisa asks, what if you love a bill, but want the sponsor to make an amendment to it?
You can make that. So it depends on if the sponsor is the person you're meeting with or not. Typically, you would, the way I would do it as a constituent, I'm trying to think, if as a lobbyist I would do one way, but as a constituent, the way you would do it is one of two ways. One is talk to your own legislator and say, hey, I love this bill. However, this is what I don't like, and this is what I would like to change. And can you make sure that I want you to reach out to the committee? So remember, I asked you, like, one of the two ask as co-sponsor and tell the committee. When you reach out to the committee, I want you to say support it and make this change. So that would be one way. The second way is all these bills have to have a hearing. So in the hearing, this is when the committee hears from the public, which includes all of us. And you can come up and say, you can actually testify in person and say, I like this bill, do I like it? But this is what I changed. Or you can submit a letter to the committee at any time when they're doing the hearing with that information. Is that good?
Thank you.
Any other questions to something I've already covered?
I think we are good at this point. Thank you.
Awesome. So I went back and forth if you were okay with a meeting with an aide or not with an aide. The benefit of meeting so you want to go to the legislator because you want to get the decision maker directly. If you ask for an in-district meeting, you have a higher likelihood of meeting with the legislator. But those are like, we meet like it's every other week. It's only like 2 or 3 hours. It's much limited. So if it's convenient, great, it works. Sometimes they say, hey, the legislator isn't available for the next month and a half. You can wait then, or you can meet earlier with an aide. do not be disappointed if the legislator cannot meet with you. Legislators have lots of, like, they're actually in the building, they're meeting with folks, advocating with their members, doing their own lobbying in the state, with other legislators to get things passed, doing stuff in the districts. So that's why their bills schedules are full. So if you don't meet with a legislator and you meet with an aide, it's actually a good thing, because after a good aide, you will see, is the one who takes notes, asks questions, try to really understand where you're coming from, try to get information, because what those notes are, they have a set time they meet with their legislators and they report back to their legislators, this is who I met with, these are the things they said. If I can do one more click. The other thing that they do is, sorry, that one. They also sometimes say, this is what I recommend. So if you're able to convince an aide, you are like 80% of the way there to convince a legislator, because they will like, hey, like, this is an issue I don't know much about, like, what do you think? And the aide was like, no, I think it's actually great. I've been hearing from other constituents. This is, or like, actually, no, this is like so crazy. Don't do this. So take the aide seriously, and because they do like a bulk of the work for legislators. So for the next slide, after you schedule the meeting, you want to prepare ahead of time. They don't just show up like you read. So what am I going to cover? Probably going to have 15 or 30 minutes. So I know the commission has 13 priority bills or more. You're not going to go in covering all of those. It's always good to, if you have a lot of priorities, come in with, what are the fact sheets I want? I want to come in a packet. All those things are printed. I'm going to give it to you. But what we talk about, I generally say choose 1 to no more than 3 issues, because they're gonna lose focus and they're like, wait, I'm confused. What are you talking about? And you want to make sure, like, how do all 3 of them fit it together and how are they different? I would not talk more than 3 issues. They will just get overwhelmed and everything will just be a big minestrone soup in their head and they wouldn't know what you want. If you're in a group, because I'm hearing in the chat, people want to meet together, it's good to meet ahead of time and say, okay, who's going to say what? Like, do we want to have roles? Do we want someone to be the facilitator? Do we want someone to talk about the personal experience, one to talk about the bill, one talk about this bill, another talk about this bill? Like, how do you want to divvy it up so that you're not jumping over each other, or everybody's like waiting behind and waiting for someone else to take, or one person takes over the whole thing and nobody gets the chance to speak? So you want to like prep that ahead of time. Prepare your talking points. I think this is the part where most people get stressed. Like, what am I going to talk about? So I'm going to touch on that a little later. And no matter what, don't forget the asks. You will have talking points. You will have fact sheets. If you talk the way the fact sheet is, they will like, okay, you're just memorizing this. Like, what is it about you? Why do you care? And I've been to many. I've sat in on a lot of advocacy meetings where people talk. Not asking questions, but like, I convinced myself that was a great meeting, and I left and I'm like, how do you figure out if this was a great meeting? 1, did the person did they ask questions because they were trying to learn more and you were able to answer their questions? 2, did you get a sense of where they are, what their values are, what their priorities are, to help to decide? And 3, if this was a game of telephone, would they be able to relay what they heard from you to someone else? And this is why the fact sheets are important, and some of the back and forth is important. Like, for example, if you meet with an aide, will the aide know enough to tell their legislator? If you meet with a legislator, will the legislator gather enough from you to be able to talk to the speaker or the committee chair? And when you ground all these policies in personal stories, that's what sticks in their heads. Like, we're humans, we're geared to be recipients of stories. Like, we've had storytelling since the beginning of time, and stories matter because that's what sticks. They will stick. If I tell you 16% of X and X, no one's going to remember that. But when my kid went to school and my kid didn't go to school because we didn't have any menstrual products and there was nothing in the school, and she missed school not because of anything but because of that was a story that sticks, and that's one of your priority bills. So next slide. So once you're prepared, the other thing is you're gonna be getting questions. You may not know the answer. It is really important. It's really important to be as accurate as possible and be as honest as possible. I also say advocacy is not therapy. So when you share your story, this is not about, I want you to hear everything about my story and my life and know, and I want to be honest about who I am. Doesn't matter. They're not therapists. They're policymakers. Be strategic about what part of your story or your experience you want to share that gives the point. Like, I'm not going to say, for example, if I'm going to go with the story about the menstrual products, I could say because I'm on food stamps and food stamps don't cover menstrual products. That's accurate. That's fine. But I'm not going to say why I'm on food stamps, for example. Like, that's not relevant. What happened to me or it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just opening up, like, what's it? I'm not being dishonest, but I'm only sharing what they need to know enough to make their decision. And if you don't know, just say, I don't know. Typically, if it's a technical question, you can say if it's in the fact sheet. If it's not in the fact sheet, please contact the contact on the fact sheet, so the lead organization or the commission, and they might be able to follow up with you on some of the technical stuff. But if it's typically, if I don't know the answer to this, I don't know. And you will have legislators who will be engaged. You will have legislators who will connect with you and yes, I totally agree with you. You will have legislators who would I think this person was half asleep when I was talking to them. Oh, I cannot stand this legislator. Our values are so opposite. There's nothing I can possibly find that we agree on. It doesn't matter. You still have to be courteous. You have to be positive. So some of the more challenging ones. Okay, what are the reasons you would, why do you not agree with me? Hearing that, even that, when they share with you why they disagree, is valuable information to bring back. Because it helps us, fine tune our messaging and what research to share with them. And just like anybody, if someone says well, you're wrong, great. I'm going to spend my time with you telling me why I'm not wrong and you're wrong. There's no dialogue. So this is a part of it, is just having conversations. I'm going to tell you, look, I disagree, you disagree, but let's where are the issues? So next, I think I'm almost done with this. Then what do we say? There's an outline. Again, we do not speak in outlines. You have to speak the way you speak. But generally, the outline is you want to introduce yourself. This is what my name, this is where I live, this is why it matters to me. And up front, I want you to do X, Y, Z. I want you to co-sponsor this bill. I want you to co-sponsor it and change an amendment. Change it. I want you to do this. Be upfront before you even go into the why. Because what you want to do is you want to do a sandwich. You want to start with, this is what I want, with the action in the front, the ask in the front, and you want to end with the ask. So the next is sort of the heart of the conversation, where you go into the pros and the arguments. So if you can, next slide, please. So this is the ask. So one more. So for each bill, you want to make sure you have the bill number, what committee it's in, and you want to use, I mentioned earlier about sharing facts. Facts are data. Facts are your experience, also your opinions. And you want to say, first thing, this, and the formula is problem statement. And next slide is this is why this is a solution. And then a fact that supports it. So again, any of these things. And next slide. I said this earlier, but worth repeating. Talk, and leave is not an effective strategy. Dialogue. Hear them, have them ask questions, and what you're hearing is also what makes them tick. What is it of all of these things that says, oh yeah, I can connect, or no, I'm really having a hard time with this piece, and I can't get over it if I don't address this piece. And then you want to be very specific. Will the representative or senator co-sponsor this bill? Ask the committee to do this. You want to thank them, and make sure to not just to thank the legislator, thank the aide. They tend to be the invisible workers. but they do all the work, that you want to have a good relationship with the aides, it opens up lots of doors. So make sure to thank both of them for their time, whether they agreed with you or not. And then when you're done after the meeting, next slide. It's always good to send a follow-up email, say thank you. This is what because they're gonna have, after your meeting, there's another meeting. After your meeting, another meeting. This will a follow-up just helps them when they're like going through. So, oh right, I had this meeting and it was great or not. You can also use social media to send them. A lot of legislators are active on social media, Facebook, Instagram. A lot of people, some are still on Twitter, some are leaving it. Many are on Blue Sky now. So if any of those platforms you use, you can send them a note. Even a handwritten note. Most people don't do a handwritten note. That would be like really nice as well. So after that, so next step, next slide, please. So this is the fun part. Okay. There will be 7 legislators. So Tina?
Yes, before we move to the role play, Sana, would you mind, and I think Ellen is helping you, I'm getting a few requests in the chat. Do you mind going back? Let us just take a look at the meeting again. So I think they were moving a little quickly for some people, and just the meetings, like what do we say? Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And let's just take a look at that, maybe another minute or two, so people can just grab those. So I think you want to go back further, I believe, maybe. There we go.
And if it's helpful for me to say it, the
Yes.
process is one. This is who we are. Each one to introduce themselves. The first part of the sandwich is the ask. We're here to say, we want you to do X, Y, Z. Then you go problem, solution, fact. So this is why it's a problem. This is what we're trying to, this is the problem that we're seeing in our community, and this is what matters to me. This is the solution, and this is how this bill will fix this problem. And then facts are, this is where you have a lot of fun and share your experiences, your values. And then don't forget dialogue. And then the end of the sandwich is the ask. Again, will you co-sponsor? Will you reach out to the committee? And then the thank you. Okay. All right. So we're gonna do a little role play. I'm gonna walk it through, and we're gonna go into breakout sessions by bills of the 7 bills on that's gonna be on the commissions, the statewide commissions priority bills. I know each regional one has a different one. So if you go to the next slide, what we're gonna do is if you can go to this, I made a shortened one so that you can click on it, because you're going to be on this page. You will this tiny URL or what's in the chat. If you click on it, you're going to go to this page, and next, if you go to the next page, that if you scroll down, you will start seeing these topic areas: healthcare and housing, education. So these fact sheets will be here. You will eventually match up with a bill. Sorry, a bill and a fire alarm.
It's okay, Sana, mute yourself.
So my son is cooking today. And you're gonna, depending on which breakout room you're assigned to, you want to find the bill that's associated with it. Next slide. There will be 7 bills, so there'll be 7 breakout rooms.
Donna, we lost your sound for a second.
Oh, sorry. Now, is it better? Sorry. You will be assigned to 7 breakout rooms. Each breakout room will have 1 bill. If you go now, next slide. Though these are the bills. These are just the shortcuts. So depending on which one you're going to be assigned to, if you go back to the commission's advocacy page and find the bill that's associated with it, you are going to be assigned to one of these rooms. I just want to make sure you all know, because I don't think it's on the fact sheet yet, because bill just got assigned. 2 bills are in the state administration committee. 1 bill is in public health. 2 are in healthcare finance. 1 in education. So when you practice, you want to say, and I also want you to reach out to the chair of the education committee or the healthcare finance committee. That would be one of your talking points. Next slide, please. And if you don't remember, it's fine. Just make it up for the role play, because you're not going to have access to this. We're going to have, I know, so we're going to end. We may have to shorten this. So you're probably going to do 15 minutes. So we'll do the 15 minutes for each of your group to review the fact sheets, identify talking points, and then talk to each other, like who's going to say what, do a practice run. And after those 15 minutes, next slide, we're going to have the folks who are legislators come in and join you, and you're going to actually do you're going to do a practice mock. This is a summary of everything I said before. Why does this matter to you? What's the problem? What's the solution? Those are the 3 things you want to make sure to address in your talking points. Next slide, please. So then I will rely on the organizers. If we have 15 minutes, 10 minutes or 15 minutes for the actual legislative meeting. So you're going to do your pitch. You're going to try to, I know legislators will probably ask questions. And then after that, you're going to try to figure out, are you going to do the ask? What are they going to, how are they going to respond? And then after that, we're going to come back together for the last part of my portion of the training. Next slide, where you will all give a little, just quick debrief. Those who are legislators or aides are gonna give feedback. This is what mattered. This is what I heard. This is what was compelling. This is what I think would have been a better argument. And then the next 5 minutes, where the participants, you give us your feedback. Now that you did a trial run, what lessons did you learn for Monday? And next slide, please. Oh, and I'm actually going to stop here for any questions before we actually do the role play. And this is the technical part, for how we're going to split the folks. Any questions before we jump in?
Sana, I have one question. Let me scroll back up here. There was somebody, if they're sharing their personal story, I'm just paraphrasing. If they're sharing their personal story to support a bill, can you speak a little bit about the safety of that? I think there were some concerns that would it be used against them in any way? So can you talk about that?
Okay, great question. So like I mentioned, I do this kind of work with with young people who are either at risk of or with legal system involvement. And it's much tougher with kids who have legal system involvement. What we typically say is, if it's something that can be used against you in court and you have an open case, don't share it. A lot of times it's but even more widely, sometimes sharing stories is reliving trauma, and this is not, like, unless you have the support to work with it. Like when we actually we're doing this with the young people now, this is where it's happening. What information do you want to share? How do we prepare you so that you feel supported about practicing what you want to say, what you don't want to say? And then after the meeting, if you shared stuff that was hard, who would you have to support you to help you process what you experienced? In terms of what gets said in legislative meetings, they are not confidential like with an attorney or a healthcare provider. But they're not subject to public records, right? So nobody can go back after the meeting and say, hey, did Senna meet with this person? We don't have that. That information is not public. So I would share with them what you would be willing to share with like a neighbor, for example. Like, I'm going to share this information with you. You can be very clear, like, please don't share this outside of here. This is really for you. But they're not legally bound not to share it. So if it's going to be reliving something that's painful and you don't have the support, I would say hold off and maybe be more general about this is the experience I'm seeing in my community and not being on on your own. You can always talk about my values. You do not have to disclose anything you don't want to disclose. And you don't have to disclose anything that can be painful to you or can be used against you. So they typically like I've rarely been in a meeting that someone says, "Oh yeah, I met with Jane and Jane said XYZ." But there's nothing in the law that says they can't.
Thank you for that. Okay, I think we're ready for the.
So now
Welcome.
what's going to happen is you've all been randomly assigned a bill. You're going to move into a breakout. Those that are serving as mock legislators, you're going to be pulled into one breakout with Sana and get some instruction, and then you'll be assigned to the appropriate breakout. Does that all make sense? All right.
And we have a timekeeper, right? For this first part will be 15 minutes. So we have enough time for that, right?
Yes. So, ready? Folks should be seeing the breakouts pop up and you can join. All right, Raven, I will be right back.
Can you please reshare my room?
Yes.
Thank you. Not really popping up. Oh, maybe I can click on breakout room and select one. Is there a specific
Yeah.
one I should do?
You
Which
you can
one?
select one, whatever one you see.
Uh,
Oh, I can
okay.
assign you. Here we go.
Almost done.
I hope I moved everybody in the right place.
They're already in the legislative meeting piece.
Yes.
Okay. I was hoping to give them a little bit more time to practice, but we'll
Oh, I'm
It's fine.
sorry. I just threw him in. Except family, I'm gonna move.
that means there's actually more time for them to like practice their advocacy.
I realize I'm short one person, so I'm gonna have to move these people.
Do you need me or can I step away for like 2 minutes?
You can step away. I'll be here.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.